The Awakening. Snow whirled around Thora Blackwood as she pressed her hand against the ancient stone door, her breath forming clouds in the frigid mountain air. After 15 years of research, countless rejected grant proposals, and 3 failed expeditions, she had finally found it, the Temple of the Eternal Flame. The massive door bore intricate carvings of a serpentine creature wrapped around what appeared to be a mountain peak, its scales rendered in such detail that they seemed to catch the dying sunlight. Thora brushed away centuries of ice, revealing glyphs that matched the fragments in her journal perfectly. Dr. Blackwood. Thora turned to see her research assistant, Dax Reyes, stumbling through the snow towards her. His dark eyes were wide with excitement as he clutched his tablet. The readings are off the charts. Whatever's in there is generating more heat than any natural geological formation should. Thora nodded, her weathered face breaking into a slight smile. Just like the legend said. The eternal flame that never dies, burning in the heart of the mountain for over 1,000 years. She pulled her thermal imaging device from her pack, confirming Dax's readings. The heat signature pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and strong. The door yielded to their combined strength, groaning open on hinges that hadn't moved in centuries. Warm air rushed out, carrying with it the scent of incense and something else, something ancient and alive. The temple interior stretched before them, a vast cathedral carved directly into the mountain. Columns rose into darkness, their surfaces etched with spiraling patterns that seemed to move in the beam of their flashlights. But it was what lay at the center that made both researchers stop in their tracks. A creature of impossible size coiled around a central pillar of crystal, its scales the color of burnished copper. Steam rose from its nostrils with each breath, and though its eyes remained closed, Thora could have sworn she saw them move beneath the lids. "It's real," Dax whispered, his voice barely audible. "All this time, everyone said you were chasing fairy tales, but it's actually real." Thora approached slowly, her heart pounding. The dragon was exactly as described in the ancient texts she'd spent her career studying, but those texts had warned of something else too. Something about why it had been sealed away. As she drew closer, the dragon's eye opened, a slitted pupil of molten gold fixing upon her with ancient intelligence. A voice filled her mind, not sound but pure thought, carrying with it images of centuries past. "Child of Earth," it spoke, "you have wakened me from my slumber. Tell me, has it been long enough? Has humanity finally learned to wield power without destroying itself?" Thora stood transfixed, aware that she was experiencing something beyond the realm of scientific explanation. "It's been 1,238 years since the last recorded sighting of your kind," she managed to say. "We've advanced greatly in that time." The dragon's laugh rumbled through the chamber, dislodging centuries of dust. "Advanced, yes. But wisdom and advancement are not the same thing. I am Vetronix, guardian of the eternal flame, and I was not imprisoned here. I chose this slumber, waiting for the right human to wake me." "Why me?" Thora asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Because you sought knowledge not for power, but for understanding. You followed the path of wisdom when others sought only glory." Vetronix's tail unwound slowly from the crystal pillar. "But now you must make a choice, Thora Blackwood. The world has changed in my absence, and I must understand it anew. Will you be my guide in this age of steel and lightning?" Behind her, Dax was frantically documenting everything, but Thora barely noticed. Her entire life's work had led to this moment, but she realized this was not just about proving legends true anymore. This was about what came next. "There will be those who want to study you, to learn your secrets," she warned. "The world can be complicated now." Vetronix's ancient eyes sparkled with something like amusement. "It was ever thus, young one. But first, you must understand why I slumbered, and what awakening truly means. Are you prepared for that knowledge?" Thora thought of her decades of research, of all the mysteries that had drawn her to this moment. She thought of how the world would change once news of this discovery spread. Then she straightened her spine and met the dragon's gaze. I am ready, she said firmly. The dragon's consciousness brushed against her mind once more, and Thora gasped as images began to flow, images of a world she had never known, of powers beyond imagining, and of a choice made more than a millennium ago that would now shape the future of two species. Whispers of the past. Professor Rainer Hemsworth stood before the projected images in his Oxford office, his fingers tracing the patterns of ancient glyphs that Thora had transmitted from the temple. Outside, rain peppered the windows, but he barely noticed, too absorbed in the implications of what he was seeing. The dating can't be right, he muttered, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. These symbols predate any known writing system by at least 2,000 years. The encrypted video call showed Thora's face, illuminated by the warm glow of the temple's crystal formations. That's not all, Thora's voice crackled through the connection. Vethranik speaks of civilizations we've never discovered, of a time when dragons and humans lived together in harmony. She turned the camera to show the massive creature, its scales shimming with an inner light. Rainer leaned closer to his screen, his breath catching. Remarkable. The manuscripts in the Vatican archives hinted at this, but I never thought. He trailed off, pulling an ancient leather-bound book from his shelf. Thora, there's something you need to know. The reason I supported your research all these years. The dragon's voice suddenly filled the video feed, causing Rainer to jump. The Keeper of Secrets arrives. I remember your bloodline, young Hemsworth. Your ancestors were among those who understood the necessity of our sleep. Rainer's hands trembled as he opened the book, revealing pages of carefully preserved parchment. My family has guarded the truth for generations. We were the custodians, tasked with protecting the knowledge of why the dragons chose their slumber. Dax's voice came from off-screen. Dr. Blackwood, the temple's inner chamber is revealing more heat signatures. There might be others like Vethranik's. Not like me, the dragon rumbled. But connected. We were once many, scattered across your world at points of power. Some chose eternal sleep, others chose to fade into legend. But all of us felt what was coming. Thora's camera panned across the chamber, showing intricate murals that seemed to move in the flickering light. What were you protecting us from, Vethranik's? What was so terrible that your entire species chose to disappear? Rainer cleared his throat. The manuscripts speak of a convergence, a moment when the veils between worlds would thin. The dragons weren't just creatures of flesh and blood, they were guardians of reality itself. Your kind learns quickly, Vethranik's approved. But not always wisely. We saw the path humanity would take, the powers they would unlock before they were ready. Our sleep was not mere hibernation, it was a shield, protecting your world from forces you had not yet learned to control. The camera shook as a tremor passed through the temple. Dax's readings spiked on his instruments, and the crystal pillar at the chamber's center began to pulse with an inner light. It's happening again, Rainer said, his voice tight with concern. The convergence the manuscripts warned about. That's why you've awakened now, isn't it? Vethranik's golden eyes seemed to pierce through the screen, meeting Rainer's gaze across thousands of miles. Your world stands on the brink of a discovery that could tear the fabric of reality. In your quest to understand the fundamental forces of the universe, you have begun to unlock doors that were sealed for good reason. Thora's voice was steady, but there was an edge of worry to it. The particle accelerator experiments. The quantum tunneling projects. Are you saying we're about to trigger something catastrophic? Not yet, the dragon answered. But soon. That is why I chose to wake when you called, Thora Blackwood. Your heart seeks knowledge with wisdom, and wisdom is what humanity needs now more than ever. Rainer spread his family's ancient documents across his desk, revealing diagrams that matched the temple's murals with uncanny accuracy. The custodians believed that when the dragons woke, it would either herald humanity's ascension or mark the beginning of its end. The choice, as always, remains with humanity, Vethranik said. But now you will not face it alone. The question is, are your people ready to learn what we have to teach? Another tremor shook the temple, stronger this time. Dax's instruments wailed in protest as new readings flooded in. Dr. Blackwood, Professor Hemsworth, you need to see this. The energy signatures we're detecting, they're being picked up by scientific instruments all over the world. Rayner's phone began to buzz with incoming calls from colleagues across the globe. The awakening of Vetronix was no longer a secret they could contain. The world was about to change, and they were at the heart of it. Thora, Rayner said urgently, whatever happens next, we need to ensure the knowledge is protected. If the dragons are truly awakening to help us prevent a catastrophe, there will be those who see it as an opportunity instead of a warning. Then we must be very careful about what we reveal, Thora replied, her camera focusing on a new section of mural that was beginning to glow with an inner light. Because I don't think Vetronix is the only one who's waking up. The price of knowledge. June Nakamura's boots crunched through fresh snow as she approached the temple entrance, her breath visible in the thin mountain air. Military helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights cutting through the growing darkness. She had exactly 1 hour before the government containment teams arrived. This is a restricted area, Dax called out, emerging from the shadows with a flashlight. His stance relaxed when he recognized her. Dr. Nakamura? Professor Hemsworth said you might come. June pulled out her credentials, along with a worn journal covered in her grandmother's handwriting. My family has been waiting for this moment for generations. We were the Eastern Guardians, watching for signs of the awakening. Inside the temple, Thora was deep in conversation with Vetronix, their discussion halting as June entered. The dragon's ancient eyes fixed upon the newcomer, recognition flickering in their golden depths. The bloodline of the Sky Temple endures, Vetronix rumbled. Your ancestors guarded our secrets well, young one. June bowed deeply, then opened her grandmother's journal. The warning signs appeared exactly as foretold. The quantum anomalies in Tokyo, the strange lights above Mount Fuji. But there's something else. She hesitated, looking at Thora. Something the Eastern Guardians feared more than the convergence itself. Thora stepped forward, her expression grave. What do you mean? There were others who knew of the dragon's existence, June explained, spreading out pages filled with elaborate diagrams. An organization that has waited centuries for this moment. They call themselves the Harbingers. Dax's instruments suddenly shrieked to life, their screens flooding with data. Energy spike. Something's interfering with the temple's natural frequencies. Vetronix's scales rippled with alarm. They seek to force the awakening of others. Foolish humans, they know not what they risk. The temple walls trembled as a deep resonance built within the mountain. June's grandmother's journal spoke of this, the harmonic frequencies that could disturb a dragon's slumber. But forced awakening was dangerous, potentially catastrophic. The Harbingers believe they can control the power of the dragons, June continued urgently. They've spent centuries developing technologies based on fragments of ancient knowledge. But they don't understand the true purpose of the Guardians. Thora's research equipment began registering massive energy fluctuations throughout the temple complex. Vetronix, what happens if they succeed? If they force other dragons to wake before they're ready? The dragon's voice was heavy with concern. A dragon awakened by force is a dragon without choice. The balance we maintained, the very barriers between realities we helped sustain, would begin to collapse. June moved to a wall of glyphs, her fingers tracing patterns that matched her grandmother's drawings. According to our records, there are 12 great dragons still in slumber. Each one maintains a different aspect of what the ancients called the world veil. The quantum barrier, Dax breathed, understanding dawning on his face. That's what all our scientific instruments have been detecting. The dragons aren't just creatures, they're living linchpins holding our reality stable. The mountain shuddered again, more violently this time. Outside, the military helicopters were landing, their downdraft stirring up clouds of snow. They were running out of time. We need to move, Thora said decisively. The government teams won't be able to stop the Harbingers, not if they've been preparing for centuries. We need to reach the other temples before they do. Vetronix unfurled his massive wings, dislodging ancient ice from the temple ceiling. Then it is time for you to understand the full truth of your inheritance, all of you. The Guardians were not chosen by chance. Your bloodlines carry fragments of our power, passed down through generations, waiting to be awakened. June felt a warmth spreading from her grandmother's journal, the pages beginning to glow with an inner light. Similar auroras were emanating from Thora's research notes and the ancient texts Raynor had been studying. The knowledge you each sought, Vetronix continued, the drive that brought you to this moment, it was no accident. You are the bridges between past and present, between dragon and human. And now you must decide how to use that power. The sound of boots on stone echoed from the temple entrance. The containment teams had arrived. But as June looked at her companions, she saw the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. They had prepared their whole lives for this moment, whether they knew it or not. The Harbingers believe they can control dragons by force, she said, her grandmother's journal pulsing with energy in her hands. But true power has always come from understanding, not control. Thora nodded, her years of research finally culminating in this moment of clarity. Then we better make sure we understand quickly. Because something tells me the Harbingers aren't going to wait for us to catch up. Vetronix's eyes gleamed with approval. Then let us begin your true education, young ones. For the price of knowledge has always been responsibility, and the time has come to pay that price in full. Wings of change. The mountain temple had become a fortress of shadows and light, military floodlights casting harsh beams through ancient windows while Vetronix's scales cast dancing reflections across the walls. But it was the sky above that held everyone's attention, where the aurora borealis writhed in impossible patterns, tears appearing in the fabric of reality itself. 3 temples breached, Dax reported, his tablets displaying feeds from satellites and ground teams. The Harbingers are moving faster than we anticipated. They're using some kind of resonance technology to force the dragons awake. Thora stood at a makeshift command center they'd established in the temple's inner sanctuary, surrounded by holographic displays showing disturbances across the globe. Professor Hemsworth's voice crackled through their secure channel from Oxford. The Vatican archives are compromised, Raynor reported, the sound of alarms blaring behind him. They knew exactly where to look. Centuries of protected knowledge, now in their hands. June's fingers flew across an ancient stone panel, activating glyphs that hummed with power. The Eastern Temple networks are responding. We're getting readings from sites that have been dormant for millennia. Vetronix's voice resonated through their minds, heavy with concern. They do not understand. Each forced awakening tears at the barriers between worlds. The veil grows thinner with each violation. As if in response, the air shimmered, and for a moment they could see through the gaps, glimpses of other realities, worlds where history had taken different paths. The sight sent chills down their spines. We're receiving reports of temporal anomalies worldwide, Dax announced, his voice tight. Time distortions, physics breaking down in localized areas. The Harbinger's actions are having exactly the effect you warned about. A new alert flashed across their screens, another temple location, this one in the depths of the Amazon rainforest, had gone dark. June's grandmother's journal began to pulse with an urgent light. They're not just forcing them awake, June realized, horror dawning on her face. They're trying to bind the dragons to their will. The resonance technology, it's not just an awakening tool, it's a control mechanism. Thora felt Vetronix's anger surge through their mental connection, a fury tempered by ancient wisdom. No human technology can truly bind us, the dragon rumbled. But their attempts create discord in the very frequencies that maintain reality's stability. The temple's crystal pillars began to vibrate, responding to disturbances in the global dragon network. Through the gaps in reality, they could hear echoes of other dragons' pain, their siblings being torn from their chosen sleep. We need to strike back, Thora declared, years of academic caution giving way to desperate necessity. Vetronix, you said our bloodlines carry fragments of dragon power. How do we access it? How do we fight back? The great dragon's eyes gleamed. The power has always been within you, waiting. But accessing it requires understanding what we truly are. We dragons are not merely creatures of flesh and bone, we are living equations, expressions of the universe's fundamental laws given consciousness and form. June's journal suddenly burst into brilliant light, its pages turning on their own to reveal complex mathematical formulas disguised as artistic patterns. Similar illuminations began to emerge from Thora's research notes and the texts Raynor had been studying. The ancient languages, Dax breathed, seeing the patterns with new eyes. They weren't just writing systems. They were programming languages for reality itself. Your ancestors understood this, Vetronix confirmed. They encoded the knowledge in ways that would be protected until needed. Your lifelong pursuits, archaeology, physics, cryptology, they were preparing you to understand these truths. A massive tremor shook the mountain as another reality tear opened above them. Through it, they could see a dark reflection of their world, one where the Harbinger's predecessors had succeeded centuries ago, where dragons were enslaved and reality itself was beginning to unravel. We don't have much time, June warned, her hands moving instinctively through patterns she somehow knew, activating more temple systems. The Harbingers are approaching our location. They'll try to take Vetronix too. Thora felt knowledge awakening within her mind, understanding of symbols and powers she had studied her whole life without truly comprehending. Then we make our stand here. We show them why the dragons chose cooperation over control. Vetronix's scales began to glow with inner fire, responding to the awakening power in his human allies. Remember, the power you wield is not for dominion, but for harmony. That is what the Harbingers never understood, and why they will ultimately fail. The mountain temple hummed with energy as ancient defenses came online, powered by the combined understanding of dragon wisdom and human innovation. Above them, reality continued to tear, a reminder of what was at stake. More temporal anomalies detected, Dax reported. The tears are spreading faster. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. Thora looked at her companions, June with her ancestral knowledge, Dax with his modern expertise, and Raynor connecting them to centuries of hidden wisdom. Together with Vetronix, they represented the bridge between past and future, between power and wisdom. Then let's show them what true dragon power looks like, she said, as the temple began to shine with light that hadn't been seen in over 1,000 years. Beyond the veil. Reality itself seemed to bend around the mountain temple as the Harbinger's forces approached. The air shimmered with overlapping worlds, glimpses of paths not taken, futures that might yet be. Thora, June, and Dax stood with Vetronix in the inner sanctuary, their inherited powers awakened at last. They're here, Dax announced, his instruments detecting the distinctive resonance of the Harbinger's technology. Multiple vehicles, advanced energy signatures. They've brought everything they have. Through their mental link, Vetronix shared an image of the enemy's approach, black-clad figures carrying devices that pulsed with stolen dragon energy, their leader wielding a staff made from crystallized time itself. Director Kane, June breathed, recognizing the leader from her grandmother's warnings. The Harbingers have been planning this for generations. His family has led them since the beginning. The temple's ancient defenses hummed to life, powered by the combined understanding of dragon wisdom and human innovation. But the reality tears were spreading faster now, weakening the very foundations of their world. Professor Hemsworth, Thora called through their communication link. Are you seeing this? All too clearly, Raynor replied from Oxford, where similar tears were appearing. The dimensional barriers are critically weak. If they force one more dragon to awaken, the damage may be irreversible. Vetronix's voice resonated through their minds. Then the time has come to show them why dragons chose partnership over bondage. Why wisdom must guide power, not control it. The massive doors of the temple burst open, and the harbingers stormed in. Director Kane stood at their head, his time crystal staff crackling with energy. His face bore the confident smile of someone who believed victory was already his. "Dr. Blackwood," he called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Did you really think your academic pursuit of legends would lead you here? To the moment when humanity finally takes its rightful place as masters of reality itself?" Thora felt the power flowing through her bloodline, connecting her to centuries of knowledge. "You still don't understand. The dragons weren't meant to be controlled. They're the guardians of reality's balance." "Balance?" Kane scoffed. "Look around you. Look at what humanity has achieved. We've split atoms, unraveled DNA, touched the stars themselves. Yet you would have us remain bound by ancient limitations?" June stepped forward, her grandmother's journal glowing with inner light. "The limitations exist for a reason. The dragons didn't sleep because they were weak, but because they were wise. The harbingers raised their resonance devices, the air vibrating with their combined power. But something was different now. The knowledge awakened in Thora, June, and Dax had changed them. They could see the patterns of reality itself, understand the mathematics of existence that the dragons had guarded for so long. "You forced the dragons awake," Dax said, his hands moving through complex patterns he somehow knew, "but you don't understand what they truly are. They're not just creatures, they're living equations, fundamental forces given form." Kane's smile faltered as the team began to glow with dragon fire, their inherited powers manifesting fully. "Stop them," he commanded, but it was too late. Vethranix spread his wings, and reality seemed to bend around him. "You sought to control the powers that maintain existence. Now witness why such power requires wisdom to wield." The dragon's consciousness merged with his human allies, and suddenly they could see everything, the intricate web of forces that held reality together, the delicate balance the dragons had maintained for millennia. With their combined understanding, they began to heal the tears in space and time. "No." Kane rushed forward, raising his staff. "I won't let you undo centuries of preparation." But as the harbinger's devices activated, something unexpected happened. The resonance they created didn't bind the dragon, instead, it flowed through the newly awakened powers of Thora and her companions, transforming into pure understanding. The true power was never about control, Thora realized, her voice carrying the weight of dragon wisdom. It was about harmony, about maintaining the balance that allows reality to exist. The time crystal staff in Kane's hands began to crack, its stolen power returning to its rightful place in the universal equation. Around them, the reality tears began to seal, the knowledge of how to heal them flowing through the dragon-human bond. "Your choice, as always, remains," Vethranix addressed the harbingers. "Continue this path of destruction, or learn to understand the power you sought to control." One by one, the harbingers' devices failed as the truth of the dragon's words became undeniable. Kane watched his life's work dissolve, the staff in his hands crumbling to dust. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice hollow. Thora looked at her companions, seeing in them the bridge between human and dragon, between past and future. "Now we do what should have been done centuries ago. We learn from each other. The dragons need humanity's innovation and adaptability, just as we need their wisdom and understanding." The mountain temple began to pulse with renewed energy as other dragons, awakened not by force but by choice, responded to the harmony that had been achieved. The reality tears sealed completely, leaving behind a world forever changed, but stronger for the understanding gained. "The age of sleeping guardians is over," Vethranix declared. "The age of cooperation begins." As dawn broke over the mountain, casting golden light through the ancient windows, Thora, June, and Dax stood with their dragon ally, knowing that their real work was just beginning. The world would need guidance to adapt to this new reality, to understand the responsibility that came with such knowledge. But as they watched the sun rise on this new era, they knew that wisdom and power had finally found their balance, and the future, though uncertain, was full of possibility.